am I now? I was tied up, and I was in some kind of cage. Sharp blades surrounded me except for in front of me, where there was a glass door so that I could see the outside. Then, lights in the room outside me turned on. A giant timer turned on, counting down to my demise. Then, the architect's voice spoke from an intercom.
Hello, Gregory. You have put up quite the fight, but now is your final round. Above you is a lead tank full of sulfuric acid. Once the timer stops, the hatch will open and you will die. It's been fun, Gregory, but as always, all games must come to an end. Goodbye, Gregory.
The clock tickled down to the moment of my demise. I looked around to try and find some way to free myself, and then I got an idea. I rubbed my back against the sharp blades surrounding me, careful to do it in a way that I didn't cut my face. It took longer that way, and by the time I had freed myself, there were only seconds left, but I had freed myself nonetheless. Then I opened the glass door, which thankfully was not locked, and then ran out of the glass cage. As I ran, I could hear the acid pouring out of the hatch, sizzling through the glass. Then I got to the door and I ran out into the hallway and shut the door behind me. After I ran a bit further down the hallway, I looked around to make sure that the architect wasn't there or something. Nothing as far as I could see. The hallway was completely empty. I tried to navigate the hallways and find an exit, but at first, I had no luck. Then, I came across Kevin Winton's body lying on the floor, with the Etch-a-Sketch lying right beside it. I picked up the Etch-a-Sketch, now blank, and asked out loud if Sherrod could hear me. Then, he responded, "Yes." I asked him if the architect was nearby, and he answered, "No, the architect is long gone. He left the building. His message was pre-recorded." Then, Sherrod started writing some more. He took Robert and Rowley to the megaplex, where he plans to execute them. You must act fast if you want to save them. I asked him to show me a way out, and the Etch-a-Sketch erased before a drawing of the schematics of the basement area started to be drawn on the Etch-a-Sketch. There was a dot to where I was, and then a line starting from where I was leading to the exit. I thanked Sherrod and started following the path until I got to where it said the exit was, and standing in front of me was a wooden door. The door opened by itself, and behind it was a flight of stairs going upwards. I went up the stairs, and pretty soon, I came into a nice room full of bookshelves. Something about the room seemed familiar to me, and that's when I realized that the house I was in was the same house I went to meet up with Maddox at back in middle school. I looked around the room for a phone, and eventually, I found one and called Albert. I told Albert about what happened, and that the architect is now at the megaplex with Rowley and Robert, and that I needed him to come pick me up and drive me there as soon as possible. Albert said he'd be on his way, and that in the meantime, he'd call Fregley to let him know what was going on too. He said to wait outside the house for him to get there, and then he hung up. Eventually, Albert pulled up in his car, and I got in and started driving to the megaplex as fast as possible. Now I'm here, sitting in the passenger seat of Albert's car, writing in my journal. Every second, we get closer and closer to the megaplex. I don't know how this is going to go down, if we will even make it in time to save Rowley and his son, if I will even make it out alive, but I have to try. I owe Rowley and his family that much. I can see the megaplex in the distance. This is it. Wish me luck. A lot happened. Let's start when I arrived at the building. The doors had already been opened, and by open I mean locked down, and definitely not by the architect. So I went through and got in the building. When I was in the megaplex, I looked around the building for any signs of where the architect, Rowley, and Robert could be. Eventually, I got to the atrium, and I saw something move on the top balcony. Quickly, I sprinted to the elevator, pressed the button to the top, and I went up. When I got to the top balcony, I snuck around as quiet as I could, and sure enough, I found the architect with Rowley and Robert. I waited behind the corner for just the right moment, and when that moment came, I ran up and attacked the architect. Let them go! But before I could do any damage, the architect kicked me in the balls and I fell to the floor. My manhood. At first, the architect got really mad and started freaking out on me. You're supposed to be dead. Oh, you ruined everything! But just as quickly as he started freaking out, he went back to calm and monotone. But then again, your pathetic display just now indicates that you are no threat. At first, I just sat there and I didn't know what to do. But then, I got the idea to do something that only an insane person would do. I tried to reason with the madman. Maddox, I know who you are. I know why you're doing this. You're a Maddox salesman. You are an engineer at Bryce Anderson's company. You originally designed the Megaplex and they took credit for your ideas. So, you managed to figure me out. I suppose I'll give you credit for that. Let's talk face to face. Then, he took his mask off. Look, I get that you're mad at Bryce and his company for taking credit for your ideas, but Rowley had nothing to do with this. He didn't know. His money still helped to fund their filthy company. He's guilty. Look, I get it, but this isn't the answer, especially since I'm pretty sure Rowley... Shut up! You don't get it. You will never get it. You're right, I don't get it. I can understand by some twisted stretch of logic why you want to kill Rowley, but why involve his son? He's literally 10. He probably eats his lunch out of a Transformers lunchbox. What could he have possibly done to you? It's simple. Bryce Anderson and his company took my ideas. They took my credibility. They took everything from me. So now, he will know what it's like to have his everything taken from him. Then, Maddox went over to Rowley and Robert and brandished a knife. Watch, and cry as your little boy does. I gathered as much strength as I could, and my balls still hurting. I stood up, ran up to Maddox, and grabbed him to try and stop him from getting any closer to Robert. My goal was that even if I didn't stand a chance against him, I'd at least be able to distract him enough so that he wouldn't get closer to Robert. As soon as I grabbed him, he stabbed me in the stomach. He tried to get back to going after Robert, but I wasn't giving up that easily. I mustered all my strength and continued to grab onto him in order to try and stop him from getting to Robert. That really peed him off because he started screaming that I was ruining everything and that the blood of Rowley and his son that will stain the floors of the Megaplex will be a message to all representing the tainted legacy of Bryce and his company. Then he got a hold of me and slammed me into a pillar near the balcony. He started slamming my head into the balcony repeatedly, screaming uncontrollably like a madman as he bashed my head into the pillar. He bashed my head in enough times to give me a concussion, probably even worse. Then, he started stabbing me over and over again in the stomach, chest, ribs, shoulders, everywhere. But I wasn't just gonna let him win like that. Not without giving him a little something of my own first. So I gathered every last bit of my strength I had, and with everything I had left, I kicked Maddox right square in the balls. Maddox lurched back and stumbled as he tried to walk around, but he wouldn't be able to hold out for long, and pretty soon, he fell against the railing. I remembered what Christopher Brownfield told me about the railing at Crunchy Fingers, as right in front of me, the railing broke from behind Maddox and he fell off the balcony and plummeted all the way down to the ground floor. No! Pretty soon, I heard the sound he made when he hit the ground, and it was not a pleasant one. I was too weak to do anything else from my wounds, so I collapsed to the ground. As I lay against the pillar, my head spun and I began to feel woozy. Then, I began to feel myself slipping out of consciousness, but it wasn't natural, like passing out. No, this was something forcing me out of consciousness. That's when I felt an evil presence envelop me, and I realized that just because Maddox fell to the ground didn't mean that he would be immediately dead, but he would likely be unconscious, which was exactly what Manny wanted. And since Manny was still attached to Maddox, he would use his powers to keep his vessel alive. And now, I was in prime condition for Manny to force into unconsciousness, into a dream where he was in full control. I sank deeper and deeper into unconsciousness, and the evil presence continued to envelop me. Soon, I slipped completely out of consciousness and into the claws of evil. I was in Manny's clutches now.